Two, one, and we are recording from his professional studio along with my studio. His air conditioner is broken, and I have utmost sympathy for you, but I will not share my air conditioning. But this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Mr. John Rennie, you came on last time, talked about Eye of the Watch, and then this past book, all in the same boat, which has some badass aspects to it, which we'll jump to. But for all the new lists. Oh, and last time we we ended up we talked about COVID or something, and I said I couldn't put that on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, I interviewed a couple more doctors, and I got permanently banned from YouTube for talk. I had on the most published cardiologist in world history, Dr. Peter McCullough, and he advised everyone take a couple vitamins from Walmart, and YouTube banned me for medical misinformation. So if you're wondering why you can't find our past episode on YouTube, it's because I've been unpersoned. But Mr. Rennie, please introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, John Rennie. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Peak Demand. We're a manufacturer of products for electric utilities. That's a company I started about 6 years ago. And I am a former submarine officer. I served on the USS Tennessee during the Cold War. Then I got out. I spent 22 years running 8 different manufacturing plants in corporate America. And then, of course, I left and became an entrepreneur. So I write and I talk about leadership on the side. It's sort of my hobby. And I run a manufacturing plant during the day. So I have a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9. So my 5 to 9 is writing books, leading a podcast, and writing articles about leadership. I also talk at universities and on leadership topics. So yeah, so I'm kind of a diverse guy. I like the leadership issues. I do it full time, and then I just kind of talk about it on the side.
And just so off the top, just kind of like we did last time, take it from anywhere. So for everybody listening, your book, which I'll put in Audible, or not in Audible, is on Audible, and I'll put in the description. You talked about one aspect of it, and it's obviously, you know what it is because you wrote it, but for everyone listening, it's how they're changing watch, and they couldn't find one pair of binoculars. And it was just kind of like, all right, yeah, whatever, whatever. We'll just say we have 10 of them, turned in 9 pairs. Just like I remember doing security at a bar, right? And a huge bar, not like a normal bar, a huge mega bar. Yeah, the walkie-talkies and stuff. And when your shift was over, you went and checked it in. And if someone didn't check it in, it'd be like, all right, whatever, you owe $10. But you go into the book and you're talking about how the captain, would that technically be it? The captain or the admiral? Captain is like, find it. He's like,
Yeah,
find
he was a
this thing.
captain.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you were kind of like, all right, I get it, buttoned up guy, military. Obviously, you were in the you're literally on a military sub, but you're like, this guy's really going ham about these binoculars. Is this just like a power trip? And to the point where he was like, no one is like going to bed until and you were kind of like, all right, dude, like, pump the brakes. Like, all right, but went on to say is, well, if it's loose and it's banging around, that can actually give off an acoustic signature. And stealth submarines, aside from having nuclear armament, it's a huge thing is you can't find them. Like a B-2 stealth bomber, that thing's not pulling 9 Gs and dropping flares. Its whole thing is no one knows where it is. And you talked about how that little tiny thing is that kind of amplifies to bigger things, right? And if you're running a corporation, it's like, well, if you're not going to find every pair of binoculars, how does that amplify into other? Every day I make my bed. No one makes me. I wasn't in the military, but it's just a little thing I do because if I can't make my bed and, puff my like pillowcase, what else does that lead to? What podcast guest am I missing? What other thing am I missing? And, I don't know why I went into that. It was interesting. I didn't really have a question about it. I guess I just kind of wanted to touch on it. But yeah, man, I thought, but that's what both your books are like. Is they take these things that I can't relate to. I've never been on a nuclear submarine and slept between ballistic missiles. But you do boil it down into how it can apply to everyday life. Correct, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think probably the last 10 years, I realized that my background, my early history as a leader, set some really strong foundations for what I've been doing my whole career. And that one story you talked about was a great example of I call it's in a chapter of my book called Run to the Fire, right? So if there was ever a fire on a submarine, you know, in your office or at your school, when the fire alarm goes off, you run out, and then the professional people run in and they put out the fire. Well, on a submarine at sea, you can't run out. You are the
Yeah.
firefighters, right? We're all trained as firefighters on a submarine. We're trained to run to the fire, put it out quickly before it grows and can destroy the submarine, kill the crew. But that mindset kind of comes into business as well. And the story you told is very interesting. We had just we just went out to sea. We were leaving on a long patrol, and the captain was freaking out because there was a pair of binoculars missing after we had brought everything down from the bridge. And he said, nobody goes to bed until we find this pair of binoculars. And again, he realized that pair of binoculars could basically, hurt our mission and our capability because it would make a noise if it was rattling in the sail. So he kept us going until we found those binoculars. And and it's funny because as you tell the story, I felt like he was crazy, right? I felt like this guy was lost his marbles, right? Who cares? It's just one pair of binoculars, no big deal. But he knew it was mission critical. And I think sometimes as leaders that we have to almost be crazy when it comes to something that we know could, affect our business in a negative way. And we have to attack those problems. And even though some people might think we're crazy, we got to go after them until we solve them, because those things can have devastating effects on our business. And so these ideas that I learned, under the ocean, they apply really well to, businesses and entrepreneurs. Yeah.
There's another one in there I love, and it's it's bringing it to surface. Right? I don't know. I'm forgetting the correct terminology. Bringing this up to the surface, right? It's
Yeah. The emergency
yeah,
blow.
yeah.
Yeah.
You describe it as non-negotiable. This has to happen. Like
Yeah.
there's no, well, we can go for 99%. It's you go up or
Yeah.
you're dead. Just that's what it is. And I I loved that because you're talking about being in nuke school and how, you were like, no offense to anyone on a frigate, but you're like, the idea of doing that instead of being on a nuclear submarine is, well, to me, it reminded me of a lot of when I was a pre-med student in college. It's, I eventually, as I always say on this podcast, because I kiss my own ass, I eventually got into medical school. I aced the MCAT. I did what I wanted to do. But for 4 years studying, I was terrified of not getting in. And it wasn't just that I was terrified of failure in the sense that, maybe you're, scared to go, shoot your shot at like a hot girl at the bar and she says no. And you're like, all right. This was more like, it wasn't, it wasn't just that, what if I don't get into medical school? It was, what if I'm doing a biology degree and I don't get in? Like, do I have to go like scoop algae out of a pond for a living and like analyze it? To me, that was a fate worse than death. It was, if I'm going to embark on this thing, it's, I have to do it. There is no, right? It's like that guy walking on the tightrope between the World Trade Centers. It's once you start, it's like, this is it. There's nothing else in the universe but this. And
Mm.
I used to think about like, what if I have to go, nothing against dentists, just like you have nothing against the guys on the frigates, but I was like, what if I have to go be like a physician's assistant or a nurse? And I was just like, I would rather have never embarked on the journey than fail. And I just took it as like this is non-negotiable. If it means that I don't have a social life and I'm studying on Sundays, I was at UGA, the number one party school in the nation. If all I'm doing is studying for 4 years, that's what I'm going to do because I have to be on a nuclear submarine. And I loved that. That's another story I loved is there are things you have to just choose in your life
Yeah.
and say non-negotiable, right?
Yeah. So, the analogy I use is, for years, submarines, I mean, we're talking about, in the early days, up even to World War II, up to about 1950, the Navy was always trying to find ways to rescue submariners. So if the boat went down, we always had these different methods, these special ships, these deep submersible vehicles, all these ways to try to rescue submariners in case a submarine went down. But we lost the Thresher, USS
Mhm.
Thresher, and that incident changed everything for the Navy. They realized that it wasn't because we operated in such deep depths that most times that there's a casualty, you're going to lose the boat. I mean, it's just too deep; you can't even get to it. So the mindset changed after we lost the Thresher to focus on instead of rescuing the submariners, we want to make sure that the submarine always reaches the surface. And it was a whole mindset change, right? So they said we have to eliminate failure as an option. So they put together this program. It's called SubSafe, and if you look it up, it's an amazing program that the Navy put in place, and it's even used by NASA as well. It's this very stringent QA system in which it's people, it's materials, and it's procedures, and it's very, any system that can touch seawater has to go through this SubSafe kind of situation. And as a result, decades of doing this, we've never lost another submarine based on this. So we always had to reach the surface, and we had this thing called an emergency blow, which, if you've seen Hunt for Red October, it's made famous in that movie where the USS Dallas comes flying out of
Yeah.
out of the ocean, and it's a wild ride. I mean, I've done that hundreds of, maybe not hundreds, I've dozens of times, and it's a blast. It's a fun thing to do, but really, it's the last resort. If everything's going bad, this is how you get to the surface. So it's almost like a pilot,
It's a
when they punch
parachute.
out. It's a similar thing that we're forcing high pressure air into the ballast tanks in it, and you just pop like a cork, like almost like a basketball from the bottom of the
Yeah.
pool. You just come flying out, and it's a hoot. And the switches are pretty cool. We call them chicken switches, and there's two giant switches, and they just pull these things out, and you go flying to the surface. So, and it's a blast. But I mean, it's designed to be fail safe. So if you have flooding in the engine room, you have a fire on board, you can still get to the surface with the system. So pretty remarkable. But it was a mindset change. It said, you know what? From now on, it's no longer acceptable that a submarine can't reach the surface. So that kind of mindset too. How do you bring it to business? What are the things that are non-negotiable in your business? And I tell the story about one business I ran. We had this philosophy that anytime a request for quote came into our company, we would always respond by the end of the day. It didn't matter if 100 came in or 20 came in. We would stay, one person or two people would stay until everyone was responded to. And when you have that mentality, you don't have to measure it. Sometimes we measure
Yeah.
things in business, like we measure our on-time deliveries, right? Oh, we're 80% on time. Well, you know what? If you have a non-negotiable goal of always being on time, you don't have to measure it because it's always 100%.
Yeah.
The way we responded to quotes in that one business was always 100%. So we didn't measure it.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't, on the submarine, we didn't measure how many times we reached the surface. It was every time.
Yeah. It's exactly right. You don't measure the days that you ate at least one meal.
Right.
Right. You're like,
Exactly.
no, I
Yeah.
eat. Right. It's
Yeah.
like that. It's like that motivational. I remember my little brother sent it to me while I was studying for the MCAT. And it was that motivational video where the guy's like, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe. He's like, if you've ever had a panic attack or an asthma attack and you can't breathe, got the wind knocked out of you, you're not thinking like, I need to do this, but first I'm gonna watch this Netflix show, or yeah, I'm gonna do this, but I'm going out to the
Yeah.
bars. Nothing else, Matt. The color drains from the world, and you want to breathe, and when you want it more than anything else, I mean, it's short of like going to like a medical school with a bomb and being like, you're gonna accept me or else, right? That's probably not gonna work well, right? That's not gonna
No.
work well. That's not gonna vibe with the Hippocratic Oath. But you just have to choose it as, yeah, you gave that example of you went into that one branch and the guy was like, what do you, the translator, I think it was Japan, and it was like, or Korea, wherever it was, and it was
It's Korea. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
which, of course that's going to be just white man racist, right? It's China, Japan, Korea, it's all the same shit right now. But you go there and you're like, you're trying to go through the translator and you're like, what is your like on time percentage? And the guy was like, it's not, what are you talking about? And finally realized like, no, it's 100. We don't. There is no percentage. We
Yeah.
do it or we don't do it, right?
Yeah.
There's no,
Yeah.
what percentage of my phone is floating? No, my phone is in my hand. Now my phone's on the ground. There's no, well, yeah, it's floating an inch off. No, it's one or the other. And that's
Yeah.
kind of it kind of yeah, it is the all or nothing. It's non-negotiable and it has to be done. Um,
Yeah, I think the closest that most businesses get to it is, I think safety is becoming that way in a lot of companies. So the integrity is still a problem at most companies,
yeah,
but safety seems to be something that people take serious. That it says, it's a non-negotiable that you're going to operate safely or in. And I wish it was like, I kind of wish it was because companies cared about their people, but they don't want to spend money on in insurance and bad press. I think is more than anything.
yeah,
Sadly, and I know I shouldn't say that, but I know in the businesses I've run, safety has always been a priority because I care about people and I don't want them to get hurt. I want them to
yeah,
go home with the same amount of fingers and toes as they came in with, right?
yeah,
But safety is probably the closest thing you see in business where people take it as a non-negotiable. Most of the things sadly are negotiable, even things like quality, right? I mean, how
yeah,
many stories have we heard about, people letting certain substandard products get to the market? I mean, part of the reason I'm home right now from my studio is because my home air conditioning broke and I'm in a house that's 5 years old. Now, explain to me how an air conditioner can't last 5 years. By the way, same house. We've replaced the microwave. We have replaced the compressor on my refrigerator, and we've had to get a new dishwasher. 5 years that this house is, and these are all brand names that you know and supposedly trust. So I think quality is gone downhill,
yeah, yeah,
very very much so.
yeah, yeah. And it's it's no one actually cares. It's more about insurance. But I guess at the same time, take a win when you can get it, right?
Right.
It's not like building the like railroads going out west in the 1800s where it's just like, ah, they're dead, throw them onto their tracks, whatever. Skip a railroad
Right,
tie,
right. No,
you
it's
know?
it's definitely better than that, but from a
Yeah,
safety standpoint, but quality seems like it's gone the other way. So,
sure. Sure. And on a side note, there's a really, I'm sure you've read it, Blind Man's Bluff, all
it's a
about
great
nuclear.
book.
Yeah, I mean, but if you want to go into like for everyone listening, like the terrors of like submarine accidents and disappearances, I mean, that's some nightmare fuel. And but you're right. I mean, you can't, right? They went, what was that like metal, like kind of like lobster thing they invented that they could put
Yeah,
down at like the bottom of the seafloor. Like that thing could barely pick up pebbles. You're not rescuing anything. You're not pulling up, do like the Kursk maybe, but that's salvage. There's no,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
There's no
um,
rescuing. I mean, in
yeah,
the depths we operated, there's
yeah,
no coming back from it. And I think they changed the mindset, which was we're not going to focus on designing rescue equipment. We're going to make sure that these submarines are designed to be able to get to the surface. So, and that was good for me. I mean, what's interesting is in the Arlington National Cemetery now they actually have a memorial for the crew of the Thresher, and in the memorial they say that what they did was they created the subsafe legacy. So their deaths created a change in mindset for the Navy that has kept submariners like myself safe for more than 50 years. So again, it's a tragedy when things like this happen, but you know, in all of the things that we can't stand about the government right now, in this case, there was a major problem and we learned from it and we got better, right? And so it's a really good story. I only hope that that happens nowadays
yeah,
with mistakes that we make in the military. So
yeah. Yeah, right. No, that's like the safety guidelines are written in blood. I mean, that's where it's from, right? It's that
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
stuff, right? I mean, you could probably look at Chernobyl the same way. I don't know. I mean, possibly. At 9/11, right? I mean, getting on a plane now, the front of
yeah.
the cockpit looks like it's the entry to like a Swiss bank, right?
Mhm.
I don't really remember it, but kind of like 10, 11, I do remember like the door opening and like they let kids come up there. So I mean, again, it's kind of like take the win when you can get it. It'd be better if they had always had subsafe and it shouldn't have happened because of the crew of the Thresher, but it did, and we're here. So it's like, take the win. Take the win however we
Oh
get it.
yeah,
It's a
yeah, no,
dirty win.
absolutely, because it was a very dangerous business. I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of submarines lost prior to subsafe was incredible. It was a dangerous business. I mean, we lost so many crews in World War II. I mean, just
Yeah.
because it was, I mean,
Something went
you,
wrong.
yeah, I mean, we had, I mean, we had quickly built submarines, but we also had, enemy action, and, and the enemy got better over the years and during the war, and we lost a lot of crews. I mean, it's a dangerous business. It was one of the most dangerous businesses in the Navy in World War II. As a submariner, you were likely not to come home.
Yeah. And man, there's that one thing you talk about, and I don't even know if there's a lesson in this so much as just terror, right? He talked about like the pressure going down and how
Oh yeah, test depth.
at surface the guy would tie a string between like the two sides of, I guess, whatever the superstructure, the walls for laymen like myself. And as you went down and tie it taut, right? Tape it, whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
And as
yeah,
you went down, it started to, I'm thinking of like a cable. I hope I don't need that. It's tight. And then as you go down, it starts to sag in the middle. And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, good Lord. We're not in like a, like take like my brothers and I would always take like a plastic bucket when we were little kids at like,
Oh
like a
yeah, yeah,
pool,
yeah,
pull it down, and
yeah.
like that little thing would squish. And I was like, all right, man, when you're in a nuclear submarine and that thing is like that's, yeah, I mean, subsafe sounds good at that point, right?
It does. Yeah. No, the first time I went to test depth, the there was a sailor there that tied that string, and we got to see that. Um, and you can hear it. You can hear the hull just creaking and groaning, and so the first time you do it, you're like, oh, this isn't right. But after you do it for a while, I spent 2 years of my life underwater, so at that point it became, you got used to it. So it was
Yeah.
just kind of like it is what it is, right? It's dangerous. We respect it, but you're not going to die
Yeah.
if you stay above a certain depth. So
Yeah. And I know you're not going to answer it, but I'm going to do it anyway. What what's the depth?
in excess of 800 feet.
Bastard. He's that.
Yeah, no, I can't.
And of
Yeah,
course you
no.
can't. Of course you, yeah. Episode 5 I had on, this is episode 568. Episode 5 I
Okay.
had on a guy, this was like 2 years ago. This guy that was in the Navy, did operated like the Spy One radar system. And me not thinking anything of it, I was like, man, what's the ceiling on that thing? And he was just like, I can't. And the rest of the podcast was really, it kind of killed the conversation. I didn't realize, in hindsight, he's probably looking at this like, this guy has only 4 episodes before me. How do I not know that this is some like, I don't know, some like security test? Just be like, hey, how easily will you give it up? But
Right, right. Yeah. No,
because I
it's funny
learned
with
from
the
nothing.
book. I wanted to make sure I stayed as far away from any,
Yeah, yeah, of
secrets or.
course.
And so what I did was I looked, if I could Google it and I could find it, then I would refer to it. Otherwise, if it didn't exist on Google, I stayed away from it. So yeah.
I had on a pilot of a B2 Spirit,
Oh
episode
wow.
161, Brigadier General Robert Spalding. I had to like brace myself before that. I was like, don't ask anything other than like, can the plane fly? And
Yeah.
you can go back and look at that episode. That guy stared through my soul. The podcast started and he was just looking at it. I was like, they don't let anyone operate those things. Another thing, and obviously there are lessons to learn from it, but there's also, I'm just, you were on a nuclear sub in the Cold War. Like there's a lot that just excite. I have on Dale Comstock all the time, who was in Delta Force in the Cold War.
Yeah.
It's like the apex of like every movie is like that's the tip of you were in a nuclear submarine during the Cold War. So there's some questions I ask aren't going to necessarily be constructive or have lessons so much as just me being like wide eyed. When you heard that gunfire and it was someone was like, what, like shots fired,
Yeah.
and you were
Yeah.
like, what? And then you actually got binoculars and looked out and saw soldiers like running towards the submarine with guns. Man, that made my blood go cold just listening to it on the, because like, what happens in that are we at war? Has it already started? Do we know what's
Yeah.
going on? Our
Yeah.
communications down? Is your mind starts racing. Years from now, are they going to look back at this? Is this is Lexington and Concord? Like, is this Pearl Harbor? And it's, you immediately you default. Well, I guess there's a lesson to it. It's better be safe than sorry. You defaulted to the training and you gave the order basically like, in layman's terms, basically button up the sub, right?
Yeah, it's called Repel Borders, and this was a story when I was actually we were in port.
Yeah.
I was the ship's duty officer. Reactor shut down. We're just in port. So I stood a 12-hour watch. So I was standing watch through the night. And yeah, in the middle of the night, the topside security detail announces over the 1MC, which is the ship's PA system, that there's shots fired topside. And as he's saying it, I can actually hear gunfire over over the speakers. And, all your training and all that, you just like, no, this can't happen. This can't happen. This can't be. This is our home base, right? And so I gave the command to repel borders. That means we, as you said, we button up the boat. All the hatches are shut. We hand out small arms. So we're handing out shotguns, 45s, M14s. We're getting ready to protect the boat. I get up on the periscope and start looking to see what's going on. And sure enough, I saw soldiers running across the parking lot towards the dock area. And it just so happens I had conducted some training with the Marines at Camp Pendleton, a couple of years before, and I recognized right away that they had the blank fire adapters on their M16s, and I could tell they were Marines. And we did have Marine detachments on base to work security. So, 2 and 2, I realized that this was a drill, but nobody had said there was going to be a drill that day. So my crew, my team had loaded live ammo in their guns.
Yeah.
So we were locked and loaded, ready to protect the boat. And the Marines were having a drill. And the main reason the disconnect was the base duty officer didn't inform all the boats on the pier that this security exercise was happening. And so it was just one of those scary moments where, you've got live weapons and the other guys don't. And, it could have been a bad situation. But fortunately, I recognized it right away that it was an exercise. I secured from the drill. I told everybody it was a drill, even though I didn't know it was. But and then I proceeded to chew out the base duty officer who outranked me, and that was a whole nother story. But
but I mean, man, like that is not the place to screw around. Like nuclear sub.
No, it's not. It's not a good
thing
because yeah.
I mean, it's.
Well, I tell another story, and I didn't tell the story in the book, but it happened again. I was a ship's duty officer one night, and it was an evening, close to sunset, and I guess maybe some admiral decided to take a bunch of VIPs on a boat inside the harbor, and they decided to get up close to the boat. And so, this is before 9/11. So,
but still,
and it was even before the Cole bombing, but we're trained to, to stop a small boat coming up to our boat. And so it got really close, and we had to get on a loudspeaker and call them back and tell them to move. But it was some admiral that decided to go on a joyride. And, here it is. Like we have weapons on this
nuclear weapons. It's not that you guys have an armory of they've got a Modus on there and that's a scheduled weapon. You have nuclear multiple independent reentry vehicle tipped war. What?
Yeah. We're gonna protect this thing. So
we're trying to protect with the hand of God, right? Because if we give this up, this is the hand of God. And
it is. And so, when you see a submarine, you see, it looks just like a big piece of, a black piece of steel.
Yeah.
It's a steel tube sitting tied up to a pier. It's harmless, but we forget that there's 24 nuclear missiles potentially and a nuclear reactor parked right there on the dock. Yeah. And guess what? We're going to fiercely defend those things, right? From the, getting into the wrong hands.
Yeah, well, I mean, a nuclear missile silo in Montana doesn't look threatening, right? It's a chain link fence with like a little brick building. But I mean, under there is a Titan II or an MX or whatever, like a thing that can. I mean, look at the Titan II. The Titan II could deliver what is it, a 9 megaton warhead, something like 6,000 miles. It's like, it's. I think like the missileers used to say, if. What's more dangerous, like a BB gun or like a bowling or like a cannon? They're like, well, they're both dangerous, but I mean, you don't want to get hit by the cannon. And that's how they describe the Titan too. They're like, yeah, I mean, a 500 kiloton warhead's dangerous, but this is a 9 megaton whopper. This is, I mean, this is what LeMay called killing a nation. His plan, he informally called it the Sunday punch. That's where you could kill a nation in an evening.
Yeah.
That's what you don't mess around. The only thing I can even kind of maybe think close to was 2016. I was up with my mom. We were in New Jersey visiting my late grandmother, and for whatever reason, we drove into Manhattan. And I've always loved skyscrapers since I was a kid, still do. And you're in Manhattan. I mean, that's Mecca. And I was like, I just wanted to go through Midtown. I wanted to see like the new, because I'm a geek and I knew which buildings were going up. But we went through and we realized that like we were hitting this like heavy traffic, and it was around like Trump Tower. This was like a month after he was elected. And so, they immediately, they surround Trump Tower with dump trucks full of cement to stop like a car ramming. It's not police. I mean, they've got full on Secret Service, M4s, belt feds. It's the president elect. Right. And for anyone that doesn't know, I mean, it's not like Atlanta or something. I mean, Midtown Manhattan is, I mean, the buildings literally touch each other. There's no space in between. So Trump Tower, despite being this massive skyscraper, I mean, it's still down to the sidewalk. I mean, next to it's like a Starbucks or whatever. So you can't necessarily see it. It's not like you're going towards the White House and it all leads up to it, or the Kremlin or something. It's just right. You're walking along and all of a sudden, oh, there it is. There's Trump Tower. Well, my mom is driving and I'm like, yeah, I just want to see it. And we drive and you can see all the security blacked out. I mean, these guys are ready to, repel borders. Yeah. And I'm like, Mom, it's going to come up. You're not going to see it coming. So it's like, kind of keep an eye out. Mind you, they block off all the traffic on one side. They're not messing around. We finally go by and I go, there it is. And I got my phone out and my mom slams on the brakes and she's like, oh, where is it? And I go, drive. And she kind of jumped and she was like, kind of like, watch your ass. I was 26, but she was like, don't talk to your mother. And I was like, we're in a blacked out Forerunner and you just slammed on the they've got guys with machine guns waving cars past. And that's the only thing I could maybe even relate to with the Admiral on the whatever, the dinghy going on a joyride, is it paused and I just saw the headlines like family lit up with an M60. Like,
right. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Oh, well, if we would have opened fire on that boat, even though there might have been an admiral on the boat, we would have been justified. Right. 100%. We'd have been justified. But it's one of those things like, I mean, an admiral should know, right and wrong. They shouldn't have taken that small boat in there. But it's just one of those things that, again, you fall back in your training, things like that happen. And fortunately, the earlier situation I talked about, the fact that I knew enough about Marines to know what was going on, and I was like, okay, this is just some sort of an exercise that was unannounced, at least to the waterfront. So,
but I mean, you got to. I interviewed, his name's escaping me, but he wrote the book 1983, and it's basically the lesser known Cuban Missile Crisis, and it's all about Able Archer 83, that huge exercise we did all throughout Eastern Europe, and the Soviet Union thought that this was a front. They thought that, I mean, what better way to prep for an attack than to say we're doing an exercise, and then at the moment of doing the exercise, you turn it into attack. Well, you're already there. They're just going, oh, it's an exercise. It almost turned into thermonuclear Armageddon. And it wasn't that, we sent a bunch of bombers screeching over the horizon. It wasn't that we did, 2,000 ICBMs, all of a sudden blipping on the radar. It was, we were moved very publicly. Oh, we're doing this thing. And the Soviets were like, this could very well be an attack. I mean, and what other way would you do it? You can't, this isn't World War One. There's ISR, there's satellite feeds, like they see it coming. The only way to do it would to disguise it as that. So, the first thing I thought of when listening to your book was 1983. I was like, well, yeah, where else would they do it? Home port, docked, guys dressed in your, kind of like Dr. Strangelove, right? They're going to be dressed in American uniforms. How else would you do it? How else would you do it? Oh, it's just an admiral on a joyride in a boat. how else would you do it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and I think the coal happened sometime after that. And
2000.
I
Yeah.
just remember, what's that?
It was 2000. Yeah. 2000.
Was it 2000? Yeah. So it was, so just maybe 5 years later, the coal happened. And then my mind went right back to, oh, shoot, like, you
Yeah.
know, that could have been, I mean, obviously it wasn't a threat, but it could have been a threat, and I think they taught us, they drilled us. So the question is, what happened with the coal? Why didn't they see it? Why didn't they act? I mean, I have no idea. I don't know the story too well, but I remember it happened thinking, oh wow, I was in a very similar situation, at in a home port, supposedly highly protected. Now, the nice thing is, the good thing is now, security on the water is much heavier than it ever used to be. So now at that base, the same base that I used to serve on, I see pictures, I follow them on their social media, and I see pictures. They have security boats all in that basin area, so it's heavily protected. But back then, it really wasn't anybody there but us on the boats. So it's interesting.
It kind of, yeah, I mean, like, even like 9/11, right? I mean, how do you attack downtown Manhattan? You're not coming
Right.
in, you're not
Right.
approaching it in like a Tupolev bomber, right? No, you're in an American Airlines flight.
Mhm.
It's yeah, I mean, I think George W. Bush said, he's like, I never knew how many crop dusters were in the United States until 9/11. Because as Air Force One
Oh,
was flying across, they were like, bogey, then it'd be a crop duster. It had no radio. It was in the middle of nowhere. And all of a sudden F-16s are blowing by this thing, and the guys are like, "What's going on?" They're landing on roads, and they didn't even
yeah.
know what's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. There's another thing I want to touch on where, again, I'm just kind of wide eyed at this stuff, but it's the drill you guys ran for, and again the name's escaping me, but it's basically a disgruntled uh seaman,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Disaffected crew member. Yeah. Yeah.
disaffected crew member, where I don't know if this guy's around the nuclear reactor, is this guy around a missile,
Yeah.
but it's basically, I imagine it would be the same thing as disgruntled Secret Service member. All of a sudden, you're on the lookout for your own guys.
Correct. Yeah. That's the drill. Yeah. Yeah. So the drill is that you're out at sea, you're deployed, and somebody kind of goes crazy and decides to try to dismantle or do something to prevent you from carrying out your mission. So they might try to damage a missile, damage, something in the missile compartment, try to damage something, one of our other weapons. So the drill is, you basically lock everything down, and you deploy the small arms, and you hunt this person down, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's like Hunt for Red October. Be careful what you shoot at.
yeah,
Things here
yeah,
don't respond too
yeah,
well to bullets.
yeah, yeah. It's but that's kind of like the same thing as like the repel orders, right? Is it was
It's very similar. Yeah, it's very similar. Um, the process for the searching, but you're actually locking down all the internal compartments, and then you're searching compartment by compartment. Yeah.
well, what I meant is it was very similar in the sort of, you're in the right, you home port, they're wearing Marine uniforms, but it's, hey man, do you want to be the Lexington and do you want to be the Pearl Harbor radar operator going, oh, it's a flock of geese, or do you want to
Yeah.
just have to report to your higher ups and go, hey, sorry, I chewed out someone that outranked me, but I figured it would be better than safe to start. Hey, you shouldn't have used the loudspeaker to yell at an admiral. Well, it's like, hey, I'd rather that than what would then
Yeah.
become
Yeah.
known as the coal. So for everyone listening, you're telling the story about, I mean, it's pretty badass, right? But you have different areas where it's like, yeah, you lock down the compartments, kind of like how Titanic was supposed to work. But instead of stopping the flooding of water, it was, is there a, what is disaffected, whoever, some asshole, right? And
Right.
so you give everyone guns and shotguns, and you shut off the doors, and no one's
Yeah.
going through. And this new guy, and you were, I guess, overlooking him or monitoring or shadowing him, and he's standing at some door with the shotgun, and he doesn't know, but like the captain comes and like knocks on the door, and it's basically like, you can't come in here. And then the captain's like, very good, you're doing your thing, but I need to come in there, because he's the captain, he wants to oversee everything. And he's like, no, you can't come in here. And
Yeah.
it's basically like, hey, I get we're doing a drill, but I'm the captain. but this guy doesn't know who's talking to him. The guy
Right.
keeps
Right.
knocking and knocking,
Yeah.
and finally he says like, "What is he? Go around, motherfucker!"
100%. That's exactly what he said. This is the most junior person on the boat talking to the most senior person on the boat, and it was the funniest thing to just see the captains, because I was monitoring the drill at the time, and there is a, oh, I don't know, it's about maybe a 6-inch little window
Yeah,
in this compartment hatch, and you could see the captain's eyeball in there, and he's
yeah,
trying to figure out who was preventing him from, you know, from passing through. And turns out this young seaman was doing his job, doing exactly what he was trained to do, and preventing the captain from coming through that hatch. And but go around motherfucker was that's all we talked about for the rest of my time on board.
yeah,
That was one of the funniest things we ever happened on board. So
yeah. But if someone was gonna try to, who knows, maybe there's two disaffected guys. If
right,
someone was
right.
gonna facilitate things,
Yeah,
what would he
yeah.
say? Open up, it's the captain, right?
Exactly.
What
Exactly.
would he?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
No,
not
he
gonna,
did his job.
yeah,
And in fact, what's cool about the captain, yeah, he was pissed. I mean, I could tell he was upset, but he wasn't coming through
he's
that
up.
hatch. And later on, the captain searched out this young seaman, and he told him, he said, "Look, he said, you did your job. You did exactly what you're supposed to do." And
Yeah,
he goes, "I was frustrated because I wanted to just get through, but you did your job, you know?"
yeah.
And that's
How?
one thing about,
Yeah,
yeah. And that's one thing about like a submarine is similar to like a college football team. Like every time we come back from a deployment, you'd have about 20 to 30% of the crew would just leave. And then you'd have a whole new 20 to 30% come on board. And so you had to make sure that everybody was trained up and knew what to do and what their actions were. And so part of being a submarine captain is to train up your crew so that they all know what to do when everything kind of hits the fan. And that's what he did, and that's what he had to do. So, and this was a good example of a young sailor that knew exactly what to do because he was trained up,
yeah.
even
And
though he
again,
was young.
yeah, again, and how would you go about it? You'd be
Yeah.
wearing Marine uniforms. You'd be in a dinghy saying, "Oh, it's just the admiral." How would you go?
Right, right,
You wouldn't be
right,
saying, "Open up." Well, now you know not to open up. You'd knock
right,
on it and be like, "It's the captain." Of course you would. That's exactly how you do it, right?
right, right.
It's,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think some of the Marines, a great book, I think you'd probably enjoy, all about Cold War, Raven Rock by Garrett Graff, all about the nuclear bunker system from like FDR through Obama. And I mean, there are stories of them doing drills and like, I mean, not even no name people like Dulles or like Hoover, like Angleton, head of CIA counterintelligence. These guys showing up at Mount Weather or something for a
Right,
drill, but they didn't have their very specific
right,
card,
right.
and the Marines would turn them away, and they'd be like, "All right, son, you did your job, let me in," and they'd be like
Yeah.
loaded mags, like, "No, sir."
Nope.
But
Serious,
they
not,
did
not
their job because it was,
right,
we
right,
don't know who this is. Why don't you? If you're the head of the CIA, why did you forget
right,
your card? Right?
right.
And it's now, and again, they would get chewed out, and I don't think they were as, I guess, mature as your captain, to where he was like, "Hey, I was mad, but you did your job." A lot of these guys, their
Yeah.
egos are bigger than that, and it's like, dude,
Right,
let me
right,
in now, or I'm going to kill you. Um,
right.
but yeah, that a lot of that, there are stories that happen. Now I'm trying to think of how could I tie that into like a lesson, but I guess it would be, I mean, you would rather be, I don't know, safe than sorry. Like I know that's a very simple kind of cliche lesson. I'm trying to think of how I could tie that into my own experiences. What are things similar to that? um, I don't know. Oh, I got it. Okay, one time for this podcast, I actually somewhat got in touch with like the direct secretary to General Nakasone, who is the current director of the NSA.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Hey, will you do my podcast?" I send out 2 emails a day, and I have since the podcast started,
Right,
December 12th, 2019. You can do the math. It's a lot of emails. There's about a
right, right.
1% response rate. You're one of them. Thank you for coming on here, Mr. Rennie. A lot, as you can imagine,
Yeah,
don't want to do it. They just don't respond. Every once in a while, you get a very courteous no, and that's a win. But I got a response, and it wasn't even an automated response. It was like, whoever's first name was, they're like, "So and so, what would you like to talk to?" And yeah, I mean, I took it very seriously, and I'm like, these are the
Yeah,
things I would
yeah,
like to talk to about the NS, and said no, but
right.
yeah, I'm reaching, I'm trying to see how this could apply to real life. I don't recall how did I mean, I just read it yesterday, but how did you apply that to? Was that a lesson or was that more just a story?
Well, it's a story in the name of the chapter is "Run Your Ship Like a Captain." So
Okay,
so the idea is to make sure that that everybody on your team knows what to do, right? They're
yeah,
trained. They're in positions where they know exactly how to do their jobs, and they can carry it out to the best of their ability. That's your job as a leader. It's not when somebody fails in your company. It's not their fault if they're new. It's your fault because you didn't train them. So the idea there is to run your company, run your organization like a submarine captain, and that was part of it. One of the other lessons from that chapter is this is a kind of a really interesting difference between the military and civilian world is this idea in the military they taught us which where you could delegate authority but not responsibility. So the leader always
yeah,
maintained responsibility, but then delegated the authority to get something done. So in the same chapter, I talked about the captain putting me in charge of getting ready for a VIP cruise. So we were going to go out for the day with a bunch of friends and family of the crew of the submarine. It's called a Dependence Cruise, and he put me in charge of getting the boat ready to go to sea. And I was also the officer of the deck for the maneuvering watch as we went out the narrow channel out to sea. I had never done that before. This is the first time I've ever done it. And the other thing is the captain wasn't even on board. He lived in Florida over the border from Georgia, in Fernandina Beach. So he was at his place at the beach, and I was getting the boat ready for sea. He completely delegated the authority of that job to me, and it's just one of those things that like what a great experience for taking a young person and give them something that's really difficult to do, right? And then but then he always maintained responsibility. If anything went wrong, it was his fault, but he knew I was not quite ready to do the job, but he gave it to me anyways, and he challenged me. And I think that's one of those really great experiences. And the problem that you see in corporate is that we typically delegate responsibility, but we hold back the authority, right? So we tell people, oh, get this done. And if they screw up, you throw them under the bus, right?
yeah,
And we never give them all the tools they need, all the authority they need to get it done. Typically, we say, all right, you got to come to me for approvals for everything. And then if they make a mistake, it's their career, not the boss's career. So it's just the opposite. And the other thing is I notice in corporate is that we tend to give our most difficult jobs to our most senior people so nothing goes wrong. And so the young people never learn, right? They never get that chance to learn and fail. And the one thing the Navy was good about it was giving young officers, young sailors a lot of responsibility, a lot of opportunities were beyond their skill sets. And we learned, we grew, and we made mistakes, and we learned through those mistakes. And I think we in most companies we don't want any failure. We don't have time for it. So then we don't give young people those chances to shine. We control it. We give the difficult stuff to the senior people, and it's a problem. Young people get frustrated because they're like, I have all these advanced degrees and I got a cubicle and all I'm doing is reviewing reports.
yeah,
You don't let me do anything,
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. It makes me kind of makes me think of Curtis LeMay. His
yeah.
daughter, years and years after his death, said he didn't. He told us that he would not only, was he not going to bring us to the bunker, he said that he wouldn't even give us a heads up, which might be a little too far. It might be kind of an ass move to your kids. But he told his kids who are like in middle school and high school, like, you're not going to get a warning from me. I'm not going to say, like, hey, I'm going to the bunker. You need to go find a basement. There's a nuke incoming. He just said, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, be aware of the situation, read the signs. No one's going to tell you when they're about to kill you. So you have to be able to detect it. Which, again, I don't know if maybe you're like in 10th grade and you're just kind of, your dad's the secretary of the Air Force. You might be like, it's a little cold, but like, but it was, I guess he gave them the hardest job. He was like, look out for yourself. No one,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
mean, that's applicable to the real world. No one told me how to make a podcast. Well, first of all, I
Right.
didn't know
Right.
anyone, but even
Yeah.
if you did, who's going to give you their magic formula?
Right.
Joe Rogan's not going to tell you how to usurp the throne, right?
Right. Right.
It's so, I mean, it's one thing I always think to is LeMay telling his kids, be aware, read, pay attention, keep your eyes open, see the signs. Again, I don't know what those signs are. You're in 10th grade. You can't tell when an incoming nuke is about to happen. But yeah, man, it's now to kind of, I guess it's more so of a quote I just kind of want to go into is that quote you said, who were the three most powerful men in the world?
Oh yeah, the president of the United States, the premier of the Soviet Union, and a submarine captain, yeah, of a ballistic missile submarine. That's in the opening credits of Crimson Tide, or the opening sequel of Crimson Tide. Yeah.
There's got to be. I had on Mike Durant, the Black Hawk Down pilot, and I asked him about. I was like, when you look at he was in 160th SOAR, and I was like, you look at like the pilot of like Marine One, and he was like, stuff with your eyes closed. He was like, Marine One, you're fair, you're an Uber. We
Right.
did the
Right.
we did the low altitude at night, high speed, dropping
Right.
Delta Force in. You know, he was like, and he expanded on that. He was like, you do kind of have to be a little cocky because like that's the very thing they're breeding is right. These alpha
Right.
aggressive, go get it. You got to be humble, but at the same time, there is a healthy amount of ego. You got to
Yeah.
go, I'm going to be the best and I'm going to slit every throat metaphorically, or I guess in Delta Force, literally, to get to that point. And I got to imagine being on a ballistic missile submarine. You kind of got to look at everything else, even like a mighty aircraft carrier. That thing still in war, that will get demolished, right? Yeah, right. The Chinese carrier killer. It's a ballistic. It's a nuke.
Yeah.
You could knock out it. You could knock out. Wave to the NSA and the FBI. You could knock out an aircraft carrier with a nuke. You could.
I've seen aircraft carriers in the from my periscope, and they had no idea it was there.
Exactly.
No idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
I mean, they were friendlies, right? We were
Sure.
friendly. They were friendlies,
Sure.
but they had no idea we were there. We just popped up. We're like, oh, we watched them go by. We could have put a spread of Mark 48 torpedoes, taking that thing out. No big deal.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if it was an enemy, obviously,
sure,
would have been no big deal. They had no idea we were there.
But when it comes down to just bragging rights, just that sort of alpha go-to, who cares, enemy or not? Who's better? I see you. They don't see me. We're better. It's
right.
It's there's got to be something to that. That's a little pep in your step, like being you're the best. You're the pinnacle. You're the apex.
You are an alpha predator. I mean,
as
in the ocean, you are the alpha predator. There's no doubt about it. Now, there's levels of alpha, different types of submarines, and capabilities and weapon systems, but there is no real surface ship that can outmatch you, outwit you. I mean, you pretty much, with the weapon systems we have, surface ships are basically, we call them targets. That's all they are.
You're an apex, and you can stay under past the opening salvo, and you can pop up a week or a month or 3 months later.
Yeah.
And launch more nuclear power. You can launch 100 times the power of what happened in Hiroshima. Undetected.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. That's what makes us such a capable platform, because we can disappear. And in fact, we disappear not just from, back in the Cold War, not just from the Soviets, but also from the American Navy.
Yeah.
So we would be given a box to operate in. It was a very large box of ocean, and that's where we were. And now where we were in that box, nobody knew. In fact, our goal was to remain undetected from everyone, including
the U.S.
forces. Yeah. So we were alone. Like, a lot of military units work together. A lot of Navy vessels work together, and we did not work together. We worked alone, just with our crew against the ocean. It was us against the world. And that's it. And we just remained undetected and, sat there ready to go if we were needed. So, yeah.
Fuck yeah. That's so badass. That's so
it's really cool.
That's the sickest shit. It's
the wildest stuff. And, occasionally we would operate with other ships. And I remember one time we were doing an op off the coast of Maine with surface ships and Coast Guard ships. And we were like in a convoy, and I'm like, "Ooh, this is weird.
This
Like,
is
what do I do with this? I've never done this before."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
It's yeah. I have him on here all the time. Dale Comstock. He was the youngest ever member of Delta Force,
okay.
but he went from Delta Force to worked for the CIA, which is
Okay.
the
Yeah.
their unit that they that unit recruits from Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. It's I mean they did Bay of Pigs, they did right. They're black ops. They don't wear insignia, but Dale talks about how with that unit, the one differentiating factor was is he calls it big military. Everything else like Black Hawk Down, eventually they will come in to get might take
Right.
a couple days, but they will come in with a column of Abrams tanks and AC-130s. And as Admiral Howe said to ID'd, we will demolish all of Mogadishu to come get Mr. Durant if we have to, at the risk of even killing Mr. Durant in the process.
Yeah.
Dale talks about how in this CIA unit, there's no big mill. You're
Yeah.
done. You're down. They close the file on you. They burn it. We never heard of them. And it's
Yeah. Yeah.
and at first that sounds so contradictory, right? Leave no man behind. He says they make it very clear to you when you're contacted to be in this thing. I mean, you're already at the tip of the spear in Delta Force, but if they come to you and go, "Do you want to come to an even more elite rung?" That's one of the things they say is there's no one's coming to get you, and so there's no surprise of like, well, I thought no man left behind. They make it very clear no one's coming to get you. And to these someone like me, you can tell,
Yeah.
I'm a bitch. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to be on the team, right? Teamwork
Yeah.
makes the dream work. But to guys like Dale and other guys kind of in that mindset, that was appealing to them because they looked at it as this is just the ultimate test. You're alone.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
come back? And they look at it, and I mean, those guys, they're not normal men. Those are guys that are like, we are the apex. This is
Right.
nothing is above this. You are, as Dale says, it's like you feel like you start to be, you're in like the halls of like ancient like gladiators. Like you, so the point of me going on this whole rambling session is, and there's something about that, like a nuclear submarine, aside, even with subsafe, right? I mean, you go down though. I mean, you're a tomb at the bottom of the ocean. We're in this box. All right, CIA, you got Special Activities Division. Go do your operation. It's in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something sexy about that, man. There's something.
It is. It was kind of fun to, to disappear.
Yeah.
We would literally disappear for 3 months, and we had no contact with our family whatsoever. No, so they had a thing called Familygram, so they could send us a message. Usually got a message once every other week or so, and it was, I can't remember. I put it in the book, 50 words or something like that, and it was a one-way message from our family to us. That was it, and it came through the radio system, but we had no way to communicate back. So we were pretty much just a hole in the ocean, just
It's
disappeared for 3 months, and we'd come back, and
like
it's kind of fun.
a
So,
carrier strike group would be like Delta Force, right? It's the most powerful thing. The
yeah,
nuclear submarine, that's CIA Special Activities Division. That's even the Navy doesn't know where we are. We're dark side of the moon, far side of the moon.
yeah, yeah. No, we actually, if any captain got detected while they were in their patrol box, it would be a big deal. So they'd have to answer to that. So we remained completely undetected during that time.
I want to come back to some questions. I got to go use the restroom. Can you tell everyone, unless you got to go, can you tell everyone where to find your book and your podcast and all that good stuff? I'll be right back.
Sure. So I'm at johnsrennie.com, and there you'll find my books. My podcast is Deep Leadership, and that's on all the podcast platforms. I also have a Substack as well. I think the Substack is getting to be big, so it's johnsrennie.substack.com. I put out some material out on Substack as well. But basically, if you go to johnsrennie.com, you can find everything there. I've got 2 books out there. 2 are best-selling books. One is called Eye of the Watch, Becoming a Leader Worth Following, and All in the Same Boat, Lead Your Organization Like a Nuclear Submariner. So both books kind of combine stories from the Navy and also stories from business, and how I use the lessons from the Navy and put them into place in the business world. So that's what I do. Deep Leadership, the podcast I run, I do a weekly podcast where I interview leaders and entrepreneurs, military leaders, business leaders, and fun stuff. They're short in length. They're about 40 minutes in length, so that you can listen to them while you commute. And got some good guests on there. So check that out. Deep Leadership is the podcast.
Was that your passive way of telling me to wrap this podcast up?
Not at
And
all.
we keep
No.
them short. I
Oh,
caught that.
I'm a short form.
I'm
I
messing.
get in and out. We try to keep it under 40 minutes on my podcast, so it's kind of in and out. But a lot, I mean, a lot of guys that have got new books out or they're doing something pretty wild. It's again people I'm just interested in talking to, so it's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. No, I normally go like an hour, but sometimes like there are some people that just kind of I don't know, it's much easier and you gotta let it go. You don't ever want to cut it short prematurely. So it's just got me thinking, like that's gotta be some of the most classified stuff, right? Would be the locations of nuclear, because someone has to know, right? Whether it's the heads of the whatever Secretary of the Navy or some CIA off or some guy, some continuity of government guy deep inside Cheyenne Mountain. Someone's got to know where they are, because the entire purpose is mutual assured destruction, deterrence. The entire You got to know they're there, even if you're contacting them through some extremely low frequency, like mile long wavelength shit. Yep. Someone's got to know where they are, because otherwise they've become self-defeating. What are they doing? Sure, they're hiding. To what end? That's got to be, because I was thinking, you're hiding even from the Navy, because, well, sure, if World War III breaks out, instead of a disaffected sailor, what's the term again? I keep butchering it.
Disaffected. Yeah.
What if there's a
weird word?
Yeah. What if there's a disaffected captain of some carrier strike group, and he wants to, hey, could you, kind of like the captain saying, all right, open up, I'm the captain. What if someone says, all right, guys, nuclear sub, come to the surface. All right, we're negotiating peace with the Soviet. How do you not know that that's not some Kim Philby defector, right? You don't know that. So,
yeah.
I mean, now not that and if you did know, probably not that you could answer it, but because I'm stupid, I'm going to ask it anyway. Would that be compartmentalized? Would like one person, hypothetically, would they know where one sub is? Would any one person know where every sub is, or would that be compartmentalized just so no one person could turn over that lethal knowledge?
Well, no, I mean, it was very highly classified where our operating box was, but where in the box we were was unknown to the people that gave us the box.
Oh, okay.
So nobody knew. So the only person who knew was the submarine captain.
Jeez.
Yeah, no. So he and it was all men. I think it is still all men today, like with submarine captains. But he made his decisions where in the box he wanted to operate based on the
tactics,
the sea conditions, right? There's certain, it might sound a little strange to the average person, but the sea, you can hide in the ocean. I mean, obviously you're under the water, but there's a lot of things that happen with temperature and salinity, and what happens at different depths, that you can find places where sound bends in the right way. So sound goes to the bottom of the ocean, not to the top of the surface. So there's places you can hide in the ocean that are not, it's just not commonly known. So yeah. So we would monitor the ocean conditions and find the best places to hide in the ocean.
So you find like, it's not just that you're underwater, you're finding like an underwater area that's like the equivalent, like a natural F-117 fuselage almost.
Yeah. So we would know like the salinity profile, the temperature profile, and we were based on that, we knew what sound would do. And again, most of what we do is passive sonar. So we're mostly listening. So we find ways to send our noise, any noise that we make on the boat, to the bottom of the ocean, not to the surface. So we would optimize. We would operate in areas where we could hide more effectively in the ocean
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
There are eddies in the ocean.
Mhm.
There are eddies in the ocean, and eddies, depending on which way they're flowing, will actually send sound down. So you could sit in the middle of an eddy and you would basically disappear completely. So, I mean, just some basic tactics. I
It's
mean,
no, it's just
underwater warfare is this.
it's
This is
just so
the
cool.
it's the cat and mouse game that I loved and wanted to be a part of. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I joined the submarine
Yeah.
force. This is what I wanted to do. And when you first learn about this stuff, like, what do you mean there's places to hide in the ocean? Like, how cool is that? You
Just
know?
go invisible.
Yeah,
That's
just disappear. Yeah.
I mean, that
In fact,
really
the Trident submarine, the Ohio class, was considered to be so silent based on some of the technology on board that you would, when we would do war games against other submarines, they would look for the place in the ocean there was no sound. That's
well,
likely
yeah.
where we were. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you remember the Lockheed Martin, not the plane company, but they built that ship in the 80s? I think Sea Shadow. It's that thing that it looks like an F-117 as a boat. I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
like
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
it's like a hydroplaning type thing. It kind of lifts up.
Yeah.
The problem is it was so stealthy when you look at radar. When there was no ships in the area, eventually the radar would just pick up choppy waves, and that would
Yeah.
sort of create this static field. And then there'd be like a rectangle that was just smooth, and they'd be like, "Well, there it is."
Probably there. Yeah.
So it's like too much of a good thing, right? It's
Yeah, so we actually people probably don't realize this either, is that the ocean's actually a noisy place. There's a lot of what we call biologics. So
sure,
it's shrimp, it's fish, it's whales, it's whale farts. We always laugh at it, but there's all sorts of things that are noise in the ocean. And so we would hear biologics on all bearings. Typically, wherever we'd operate, you hear animals and stuff. But if there was a place where there was no biologics, no sound of anything, right? No, nothing in bearing 320. There's no animals making noises. That's something to say. Well, why is that? So it's something to investigate, right?
yeah, yeah, man,
It's like Predator. The movie
yeah,
Predator.
yeah, yeah,
When all the little insects stop, they're like, oh
yeah.
shoot,
Something's going on. Yeah,
right?
it's I've had on tons of guys who served in Iraq, but they talk about a sort of sixth sense. You'd go into a town, it was like an old western. All the doors would close,
Oh,
kids would go run off the streets, and
right. That's it. Yeah,
they'd be
that's it.
like they'd be like ambush inbound, like
Yeah,
it's any
yeah.
second now, fire's gonna start. Man, I'm just kind of imagining like if you're so stealthy. I mean, I wonder if there's ever, I mean, and would they even know? I wonder if in all the years of the Cold War, I wonder how close Soviet and US subs ever got without actually knowing it. Like,
Yeah, I think Blind Man's Bluff is a great book for that. So some
yeah,
of the stuff came out that a lot of people that I knew, that were served earlier, before I did, they were like, I didn't even know that story could be told. I knew all about that. I had no
yeah,
idea this story could be told. So there's a lot of stories that are, in the memories of a lot of submariners from
yeah,
that period. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's still classified.
Yeah.
Like Ivy Bells, where they went and sat in that bay in the
Yeah.
Soviet
Yeah.
Union. I mean,
Yeah.
they're like, if we came to the surface, they're like, I could have thrown like a football and hit
Mhm.
like the land. And they just sat there. Not only do they sit there, but they're sending out like guys to tap into the underwire sea cables
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
Soviets were like, this is in our backyard, so there's no need to even encrypt it. And it was
Right.
like we were right there, which would make you imagine. And this is, I mean, obviously you say you can't talk about depth, but I mean, I feel like this would be like a natural evolution of thought of anyone thinking about this. Eventually, you would want something like what was that? The French one? Was it the bathysphere? Was that thing that went down to like 30,000 feet, or like
Mm.
the stuff they send down to the Marianas Trench? Was it Albacore? Not that. That's an old sub. What's
Yes,
point?
Trieste.
Yeah,
What's that?
Trieste. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the type bathysphere or something. The Trieste,
Yeah.
yeah, where it could go down to like literally the seafloor, like
Yeah. Yeah.
5 miles down. Wouldn't that be the natural evolution of like nuclear submarines? Would be like a depth of, I feel like you'd almost want, I'm trying to think. So like the NB-36 was the nuclear B-36, and it was like a project we wanted to do where like, could you put in enough shielding to protect the crew and have basically like almost have like a nuclear sub in the sky, like indefinite
Yeah,
loiter
yeah,
time.
yeah.
The Soviets managed to pull it off because in Soviet fashion, they just said, we don't need shielding. You know, all the pilots died. But we found out we're like, it's not really worth it. But that is like the end goal, indefinite loiter. I feel like what you would in my, I'm the secretary of the Navy or I'm controlling DARPA or something. You would want something that goes way down and just sits on the literal bottom of the ocean
Mm.
for like years at a time. It would be like a second layer. You'd have the subs that can come up and launch their missiles, and then you'd have something that could come up like 2 years later and truly sit on the bottom of the ocean. Would that ever be possible? Am I touching into
Well,
topics you
I
can't talk
think
about?
most of those deep diving boats are small, very, very
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
So, it's cost prohibitive to make something big like a typical, submarine size to go that deep with people in it and weapon systems, right? However, underwater drones are something that's being, discussed, debated, tested. So, yeah, is it possible that you could put some sort of an underwater drone with no crew,
Mm-hmm.
sit in the bottom of the ocean for certain, and waiting for a certain event to take place and then come up and launch weapons? Yeah, I think that's probably possible. Sure.
Yeah. 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 You're right. I mean, the drone possibility, you take out life support systems. That's what you'd want. You'd want, well, like material science, if you could use like and now we're kind of floating off into the ether, but if you took like carbon nanotubes, if you had something like that, and you could take like an Ohio class submarine and just chock that thing full with like a nuclear reactor, a backup reactor, and a bunch of SLBMs, go park that thing on the floor of the ocean, and just like every 5 years, that's how go switch it out. I mean, that's the true deterrence. Just sitting down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, then,
you really don't know
and
if
then you
that's coming
dive
back
in,
up.
and you can really dive deep and you say, well, it's powered by AI. And then,
Oh,
you know,
100%.
then
Yeah.
you're, then
Yeah.
you're saying to yourself, well, basically have a ticking time bomb out there, right? That,
Yeah. Yeah.
that may or may not know what's really happening in the world, right?
Yeah. Or I mean, or you can't really top nuclear, but I mean, I would say, man, what if you had it run off like hydrothermal vents or something? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
really, right? Really, or, feed off plankton or something, some organic engine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sure there's people smarter than me working on that stuff, but I existed in the days of crude submarines,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, a bunch of guys, 155 of us went out at a time, and we kept the country safe. That was our goal.
I mean, it truly is the ultimate deterrence. Like nuclear missile silos are like great and all, right? But I mean, those are static. You know where they are. Even NORAD, despite being under 2,000 feet of granite, it was still, when it was constructed, its primary safety mechanism was CEP, circular error probable. The idea that a missile launched from the Soviet Union going into orbit and then re-entering was probably not going to hit within this close, and with an explosion, obviously the explosive power diminishes going right squared or cube, guess cubed, because it's going out in all directions.
Yep.
Piece of dust right here, going out in all directions, to where every mile you go, it's not necessarily 1 mile from the center is half as strong, and 2 miles is a quarter as strong. It could, for everyone listening, obviously you know this shit, but it goes down exponentially. So if you have a blast door that's capable of withstanding 140 psi or something, you know, as long as they don't hit within a mile, you're good, and that's great and all. But it's also 2021. It's also been a long time. How much more accurate do they have to get to where all of a sudden? So the point is even something like NORAD is based on Well, we're just hoping they don't hit pretty quick. Nuclear missile silos, they knew that a direct hit, you're done. We just had to get ours off first. In a
Right.
nuclear
Right.
sub, you really are.
It's
That's
a
the
survivable asset. I mean, even think you think there's the triad was, aircraft dropping bombs. You had, land-based missile silos, and you had us, the submarine force, and we were the most survivable of the assets. So yeah, it's funny. One of those, it's what you talk about on the mid-watch. We're sitting around like, oh, if we have to launch our missiles, what would we do after we had 24 empty, missile tubes? Where would we go? And it was always be like, yeah, I bet New Zealand would still be around, or Australia. We're gonna go, to Fiji, or they would just stupid conversation you'd have when you're, like, where are you gonna go after you launch all your missiles?
yeah.
And there's been a nuclear war, so DC is gone, right? That
Everything's gone.
probably the National Command Authority is gone. Then you become like scavengers, and then you become, you have to survive on your own at that point. So we would have discussions about that, just stupid
No, that
locker
actually
room discussions of where we'd go and what we would do.
well,
So
no, that actually makes a lot of sense. In
yeah,
that book I mentioned earlier, Raven Rock, I mean, the guys planning for the continuity of government, it wasn't just as simple as close the vault door. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
they had like bulldozers that were shielded with EMP shielding so that the engines would turn on. They use the bulldozers to clear the rubble. They had like seeds as they start farming. They had weapons. They're like, it's going to be a lawless land, so we're going to need the biggest weapons.
yeah, yeah,
Antibiotics. I mean, they were looking at how to restructure the world. It wasn't just survival of the government. It was, I mean, survival. They said within continuity of government was
yeah.
continuity of constitution, and it was the idea that democratic government moves forward. That would make sense. What happens when I had never thought of that before? So when we have
Right.
24 empty missile tubes, where do we go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we always said we join in the fray with our torpedoes, right? So if we could act
Okay.
we
Okay.
become a fast attack submarine at that point, we would use our torpedoes in an offensive way until we were out of torpedoes. And then, we go scavenge and do whatever. I don't know.
Could yeah, you would, I don't know, you could go meet up with a carrier strike group and be like, Will, I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we would have to then, team up. We actually trained. I don't know how much of the stuff is classified, but we would train for events like all of the major ports in the U.S. are gone in a nuclear war. So we would train to go other places and get loaded out. So we ran some drills like that, was pretty cool. So we'd go to like very non-traditional places to get, unload food, material, weapons. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I think
Yeah.
you guys sneak right up on an oil rig. Who's bombing those?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah.
Food, water. They probably got a medical
Yeah.
wing.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, it's stuff we talked about. We would fantasize about what we would do if that happened, or just not fantasize, but just talk about it, the what ifs, and so just sailors standing on watch, bored to tears, coming up with stories.
Well, no, I don't think that's a fantasy or a stupid thought at all. It's what do you do? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, eventually we came to the conclusion where it was like, what happens if so like FDR went on this like ride in the Grand Canyon or something. I think it was before Pearl Harbor, but they actually got lost. They were lost for like 7 hours and no one knew where they were. And it was, which raised the question. They're like, what do we do if we can't get in touch with the president? What do we do? And that kind of set things into motion. The first nuclear bunker was actually, it's almost kind of comical, but they had built like a ramp from somewhere underground, but it was all ramps for his wheelchair for him to eventually get to like the Fed's vault or something.
Okay.
That was the original, the Mosler Safe Company, which started as building bank vaults, but their vaults were some of the only things that survived the Hiroshima and Nagasaki blasts. They went on to sort of become a defense contractor to where all the Greenbrier Hotel, Raven Rock, NORAD, all those vaults, White House, those are all Mosler safe. So they went from, they were like, hey, they would bring it out into the like in the Nevada test site. and they'd fill it with documents, and that was part of their early advertisements, right? It was like, we can survive a nuclear blast. Like that was their thing. But that eventually did lead to the question. They were like, what do we do? So it's not, I don't think it's bored on watch fantasizing. It's, well, what is the next step? I mean,
Yeah.
on I guess the evening of Pearl Harbor, they went and got the head of the Secret Service went and got Al Capone's impounded armored limo out, and they put
Yeah.
little
Yeah. I've heard
American
this.
flags on it,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
was FDR's first armored car.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, I mean, it starts as sort of this impromptu, wacky, but then it gets kind of like subsafe. It gets solidified into standard operating procedures.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There would, you would imagine that that shouldn't just be in the realm of bored sailors. That would have to solidify into, okay, no, you're probably not getting refitted with SLBMs. Like in a thermonuclear war, like you're probably not going to some high tech. It's gone. It's all gone.
Hmm.
You could maybe meet up with, I don't know, an aircraft carrier strike group if they're not all gone, and get more torpedoes. So you could still serve a purpose. But I mean, you still have this multi-billion-dollar nuclear powered, at the very least, it's like a beefed up version of like a E4B doomsday plane. Your command center, right?
I mean, it's a command center. Yeah, we had offensive weapons, with the torpedoes that we could use. But yeah, it's one of those things just kind of funny to think about. You hope you never have to go there. It's funny. I was deployed during the first Gulf War, and for a submariner with our weapons systems, it didn't mean anything for us, right? So it was a conventional war, so we didn't participate, right? But I was deployed during that thing. But I think it was my next deployment. That's when there was I don't know if you remember, there was a coup in Russia. There was and towards the end of the Cold War, there was a basically like almost an uncomfortable takeover of the Soviet or the Russian government. And at one point, the military was in charge. And I don't know if you look back in your history books, find the exact date and time, but we were deployed during that siege of the. And, it shows the Russian parliament was surrounded by tanks. They were firing on the Russian parliament, and there was a point in time where we didn't know who had, the control of the nukes.
The keys, yeah.
Yeah, and that was probably the only time that I was like, oh shoot, like because the Cold War felt like it was coming to an end. That maybe we would, first of all, we'd gone 50 years without launching one of these missiles, so the likelihood of me doing it on my watch was pretty low. But then this coup happened, and we were all on board, just going, oh crap,
Yeah.
like what if we have? I mean, this could be a realistic scenario where a rogue element of the Russian government decides to do something to start a war. We have to respond, and then now guess what? The one scenario we really hadn't considered might play out. And not a strong Soviet Union against a strong America, but a weak Soviet Union with a rogue actor might have been the scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. A cornered animal lashing out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of that during that patrol, that's when we thought about it a little bit more, like, oh crap, we might have to push the button,
But that's what it would be, right? It wouldn't be something under your control. It would be something that you didn't plan. What happens when their power devolves? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we have all these contingency plans for our side. I mean, it's like Will Larkin said in the final chapter of his book, The Journals Have No Clothes, which came out this year. He talks about COVID and Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD. They didn't know. We think about it now, like, okay, it's COVID, but they buttoned it up. They turned on like the recycled air conditioner. They closed the vault doors. It was very quiet. They didn't it wasn't in the news. Didn't get anybody freaked out.
Yeah.
And they separated teams of like, I guess, employees into these separate kind of compartmentalized boxes, blue team and silver team, in case any of them were contaminated. And they started operating on like, does this cause, they war gamed it. They're like, does this cause governments to collapse? Who's going to be in control of nukes?
Right.
It was, again, it's not something you ever plan on, but they're like, could it be a virus? And that's what leads us to, but they quietly shut the doors And
Yeah, yeah,
they were like, we got to start planning for this.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
what you'd expect, right? Tanks surrounding like Russian parliament or whatever. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, it's funny because we were getting, of course, there's no TV. We can't get news reports while we're deployed. We were getting radio messages of what was going on. And when we got back from sea, I remember seeing on the news. I was like, oh shoot, it was worse than we thought. Like it was we were like, oh, I'm glad we didn't see the video of tanks, firing on Parliament and all that. That'd have been pretty nerve wracking to be on the other side, having access to these devastating weapons, and hoping you never have to use them.
when was your last time on a nuclear sub, like actively serving?
1994.
Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. So I was going to ask. I mean, I wonder what it was like on 9/11.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, those guys, same thing. I'm sure we changed, status.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure there was very much a lot of traffic coming to the boats. You tell them what to do and how to act, and yeah. But yeah, it is. When world events happen and you're deployed, you're always thinking like, okay, how
Where
am
does
I
this
going to be
go?
involved?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, right. Rumsfeld switched it to DEFCON 3. I mean, which
yeah,
we
yeah,
hadn't done since Cuban Missile Crisis, right? It was, yeah. I mean, last thing, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But I was just thinking,
sure.
like, man, if you really wanted like stealthiness and you weren't sure in a time of war who's a defector and who's not, I mean, would you even stay in your box of operation? Would you not just
Yeah,
like screw this? I don't, the captain's got a hunch and he's like, I mean, you're under there. It's not like you're talking face to face. You don't know who's sending you the mess. I mean,
right.
there's encrypted. I get there's all the safeguards, but I mean, if it was really time of war, Beijing's gone, New York's gone. Are you staying in that little box? I'm thinking you're going full like primitive instinct survival. Someone knows we're in this box. They don't know where we are. Well, fuck this box. Let's leave. Let's leave.
I'd imagine if all the signals were moving in that direction, then you would
Get
move
out
and
of there.
I mean you'd become a lone wolf, you would hunt and you would survive, right?
That's so
Until you
sick.
until you could figure out what was going on and what your role was supposed to be. Yeah.
Talking with Dale, Delta Force CIA guy. Dale's like Rambo. Dale's almost 60 and Dale could still kick the shit out of any like MMA fighter, right? He's just that's how those guys are built. And then you are so well spoken and soft spoken. And to think that you were on the tip of a nuclear spear hiding in the dark that could just hunt and kill anyone. And even the US didn't know where you were. It's just funny.
Well,
You're
it really is.
but I mean, what I mean is like you're just so calmly talking about this. You're a very well-read guy. You're clearly historically, I guess, educated, and you're just talking about no, we're gonna go off dark into the ocean with 24
Yeah.
Trident missiles, and we could kill a nation. And it's just like it's awesome.
Think about this. The most badass Navy SEAL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you might have a chance to use your skills in front of an enemy, right? And you may get a chance to kill somebody
Mm-hmm.
or kill two people or kill five people,
Sure.
right? In your time as a SEAL in combat. We were talking about killing millions.
Yeah, mega deaths.
Yeah. So it is a humbling, it's a very different kind of skill set that we had. And obviously we had the systems to back us up, but you had to have a different kind of person. We weren't Navy SEALs. We weren't the guy that's going to kill you, with a bayonet and,
Yeah.
and choke you out and all that sort of thing. But we were going to outthink you and we were going to put, warheads on foreheads and we were going to, it was going to be like nation destroying kind of action. So we were those guys.
Curtis LeMay, kill a nation.
Yeah. We were those guys. Yeah. Yeah. My job, I was the weapons officer. My last two patrols, I knew all our target packages. I knew, what we were going to destroy.
By the way, I I hope my wording of that didn't come across as insulting because I
No,
realized as
no,
soon as I
no. Just
said it,
it's just the opposite. I've thought about it a lot, because I mean, seals are. This is what's so funny about it, is like seals are really celebrated. Navy SEALs are
yeah.
like Navy SEAL write a book bestseller every time, right?
Well,
Um,
that's
and
what sorry,
then
that's what Dale says about Delta. He goes, Navy
yeah,
SEALs are
Delta, same
he
thing.
goes he
Delta
goes
Force writes a
he
book. Yeah,
yeah
yeah.
yeah
But the real, I think some of the real killers in our
yeah.
military were guys like me, the guys that were the bomber pilots, the ones that were
Mhm.
in those missile silos, and these were the real. I mean, the devastation that we could bring upon another nation is it's mind-boggling when you understand what it is. So you had to have a special breed of people that were mentally tough, maybe not as
Yeah.
physically tough as a Navy SEAL, but mentally you had to be pretty good. I mean, we would spend 3 months at a time underwater, isolated, away from family, away from other units, and operating alone in the Atlantic and ready to strike. And it took a special someone with a lot of mental
Mental resilience. Yeah.
strength and resilience, yeah, and grit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just realized as I also overthink everything. I'm a naturally anxious person, but I realized as I was wording that I'm describing Dale as this He-Man, and I didn't mean to by default imply that you're the opposite. No, it's just
No,
yeah,
no, just no. It
you
believe
think
me. I
of
mean,
you
I
think of a
went to
Dale
I
or
went
a
to nuclear power school, and I describe in the book as boot camp for geeks. I mean, it was
yeah.
like the top engineers from all over the country were in nuke power school, and it was basically going to buds for the smartest, the brightest in the country,
Yeah.
going there. And then
Yeah.
there was me. So
Yeah. It's yeah. But yeah, it's like who would you fear more? And it's like Dale with a silenced pistol, or is it some guy at Fort Meade? Probably Fort Meade. Dale
yeah,
could kill me bar none. Like I get that.
yeah,
But I mean, who's someone that can monitor 100,000 phone calls a second with a
yeah,
supercomputer and triangulate? It's who's more dangerous, the fighter pilot or the guy that's monitoring the drone. It's
right, right.
there are different. The aircraft carriers. It's the yeah. It's the fighter jets taking off, and it's this massive thing. It looks like it could fly through, you go through a mountain. But no, it's the like you said, it looks harmless. But yeah, no, the silent, just black tube, just disappearing that
Yeah,
could rain
yeah.
down 100 Hiroshimas.
Yeah, yeah. If you look, there was just recently a missile launch, Trident missile launch. I've got a picture of it on my computer right now, but they call them DESO launches, and they just launched. So we routinely would fire missiles without the warheads on a regular basis, but
Mm-hmm.
when you see what a Trident missile looks like coming out of the water,
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you're looking at the ocean, everything is beautiful, and then all of a sudden a Trident, D5 missile comes out of the ocean and just soars out and goes basically into space and then comes down on
Yeah.
something. It's there's no warning. There's no knowing that's coming. It's impressive technology. It was certainly an honor doing what I did. I still can't believe they let me play on a submarine for 5 years. It was a credible experience. 23 years old, 24 years old. I remember, I talk in the book. I used to have to climb into the missiles as the missile officer and do inspections on them before each deployment. I'd be inside a nuclear weapon, with a flashlight, and making sure everything
Jeez.
was set right. I had warhead right over my head. I could look. Oh, there's a nuclear warhead. I mean, and then I got to the civilian world, and I did. They told me they gave me a company credit card when you said you have $100 spending authority. I'm like, I was working on nuclear weapons here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So
It's the guy handing you the box of pens, and
right, right. So it's just
you're
one
like,
of those.
dude, do you even? You're like, dude, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? You're like, do you?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's man, it's you got to write another book, and it has to be Warheads on Foreheads.
yeah.
I
My
had
my
never heard that
son,
before.
my son is in the Navy as we speak, and he's training to be a fire controlman, which they're the guys that operate the missile system. So he'd be the one, the the steely-eyed officer give the command launch, missile. He's the guy pushing the button. So he's and I found him a T-shirt that says "dropping warheads on foreheads." So he's got it, and
That's awesome.
he wears it to the gym, and yeah.
Oh man, that I want to make the title of the episode the book, but I kind of want to make it warheads on foreheads.
Sure, I don't care.
Which do you look at? I always, whenever I have on an author and we talk about their book, I make it the name of the book. But that's warheads on foreheads is so good. I might have to do that.
I'll probably say this, and I'm sure there's somebody that's listening in that's going to be offended by this, but we used to have T-shirts, and there was a thing in the submarine force, and we had a sick sense of humor. I mean, submariners have a kind of an interesting sense of humor, but there were these T-shirts, and it showed a submarine kind of going away on the surface, all of the missile tubes open, and there's just mushroom clouds in the background. It says, it says 24 mushroom clouds, 24 empty silos. It's Miller time.
Oh fuck yeah. Yeah, no, it's right. Or it's no, who gives a shit who's offended by that? Get over it.
It was just kind of a funny thing. We wore them like it was like a normal T-shirt.
You gotta kind of also normalize it, right? You can't keep it on a pedestal. You kind of got to become accustomed to it. I also go insane.
Right.
Yeah, another one I saw, I think it was from Missileers, but it was like a Domino's thing, but it was like 9 megatons in your backyard in 30 minutes or less. And it's like, yeah, but that's what it is. That's
what it is. Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yep.
You got to write another book and call it Warheads on Foreheads.
Yeah, well, I've got another one in progress, so I got to finish that one. So
can you drop any hints on it, or?
So it's really based on the first book, I Have the Watch. This new book is called You Have the Watch, and it's basically it's for leaders. It's like a daily leadership exercise to go through for a year. So it's basically a year's worth of things to look at every week, is focused on different leadership aspects. So some of the guys that read my first book said, "Hey, it's like the stories are short. I can read one in the morning, and I can kind of go on with my day." So that's what I did. This is more of like a guided journal for leaders, new leaders, experienced leaders. So it's going to be called You Have the Watch, and it'll be out soon at some point. It'll be out when I finish it.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then Warheads on Foreheads.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. I know I kept you for an hour and 40. It's much longer than I normally go for, but it's a badass book. It's I'll put it in the description as always. It's only about 6 hours. I would say 6-hour listen on Audible. It's completely doable.
Yep.
It's it's a fantastic listen. And even if you're not in it for the leadership thing, you just want to hear some badass stories about being on a nuke with missile silos or nuclear missiles and shit. I mean, it's even for someone that just wants to read about nuke. It's also just a good, I guess, piece of literature. But
it's lots of stories. I believe that we can learn lessons from stories. So there's more than 50 stories in this book, and they're all kind of, they're all bite-sized stories that you can listen to quickly and learn something. And we try to have some fun with it. So there's some humorous stories in there. So, but yeah, all in the same boat is the name of the book. It's out on Audible, Kindle, get it on Amazon, get it on my website. So, yep.
Well, my generation, we never learned how to read, so I'll put in the Audible link. We can't read. I don't know what any of those things behind you say. It's just hieroglyphics to me. But
it is. By the way, that's how I listen to all my books, is Audible.
Dude, I can't. I was pre-med because it was like you in nuke school. It was out fear. That's how I read. But now when I'm just no, man, I gotta put it on Audible. I gotta be able to do laundry and go to the store and I can't sit down and read for more than a minute. My brain starts wandering. But you start listening to it, you can fall into a rhythm, and just next thing you know, you absorb a whole book in an afternoon. So
exactly. Yep.
It's awesome. I appreciate it, man. I will put the link to the book in the description, as well as your podcast, your website, all those good links. I'll put it in there, and your Twitter. And now we're, last time we joked about it, but now we are permanently banned from YouTube. So I don't even know what to tell you. So I don't know. If you want to hear about nuclear missile silos, you got to come to my thing on Rumble or Spotify or wherever. It doesn't matter. I'll send you the link when it's uploaded. I got another one after this, so I got to edit and shit, but I'll send it to you later this evening.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Warheads on Foreheads. And go around, motherfucker. Fuck yeah. All right, man. Take care.